Thank you very much, madam. Good morning, one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our next resource person, Dr. Prakash S. Kamble, sir. He is ex-HOD of Economics Department, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He is a well-known academician. He environmental and resource economics and public economics. He has published more than 180 research at national and international level. He has more than 31 years of teaching experience. He has completed two major projects. 13 students are awarded by MPhil, and 11 students are awarded by PhD. He has published and written 9. He has visited Japan and Malaysia for study purpose. He is a recipient of a number of best research papers. He is a and various departments in Shivaji University, Kolhapur. So we have with us the most versatile and dynamic speaker. He is going to talk on impact of COVID on Indian economy and the strategy ahead. Without Prakash sir to deliver his talk, over to you, Kamble sir.
Good morning, one and all.
Good morning.
At the very outset, I am very much thankful to SKP College, Principal Dr. Mandle, his team, Dr. Sumeda, Dr. Khobre, Dr. Khod, all others, their participants and my fellow resource persons. Really, it's a proud and privilege for me to deliver a lecture on a very important as well as burning topic of COVID-19 lockdown and its impact on Indian economy. So far as my lecture is concerned, prominently it is divided into two to three sections. Number one is what is the present position of corona infection in India? What are its salient features at this moment that I want to place before you, because it has some policy implications. Number two is how COVID-19 lockdown policy affected Indian economy, what impact it has brought on the Indian economy and economic growth of India. Number three is what are the causes which are responsible, what are the factors, what are the determinants which are responsible so far as adverse or impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy. Then in the third session, I will try to touch upon what policy measures the government of India along with Reserve Bank of India have been introduced and the efforts are being made so as to implement them. And in the next section, I will try to place before you how the policies are affecting the revival of the Indian economy. What is the status of revival of the economy after implementation of the measures and remedies coupled with Reserve Bank of India and Government of India as well, which are being implemented. And in the last section of my lecture, I will try to explain what the opportunities are there, what challenges are there, and what should be a direction for government policy so far as eliminating the impact of COVID-19 lockdown on Indian economy, for revival of the Indian economy, for revival of the Indian society as a whole. In that direction, I am going to place before you so far as my lecture is concerned. Now, first of all, I will begin with what is the present position of COVID-19 infection in India. And I am trying to cite before you today's data. So far as total cases in India infected from COVID-19 infection, that stood at 2,76,583, of which 1,35,206 have been cured and 1,33,632 are active. But at the same time, 7,745 deaths have been taken place. So far as the state-wise analysis of COVID-19 pandemic infection is concerned in India, it is found that Maharashtra is in leading position with 90,787 cases, which is followed by Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has 34,914 cases. Delhi has 31,309 cases. Gujarat 21,014 cases, and Uttar Pradesh 11,335 cases. These are the prominent states which are the major stakeholders so far as the total number of cases infected from coronavirus or COVID-19. But the recovery rate, its comparison across the states, when it is taken into account, it is found that it is the Gujarat which has the highest recovery rate at this moment. It is 68%, which is followed by Uttar Pradesh. It is 58.8%. Then Tamil Nadu has 52.5 recovery rate. Maharashtra has 47% recovery rate, and Delhi has 37.9% recovery rate. The comparison of death rates across the states is taken into account. It is found that Gujarat has highest rate of mortality, that is 6.2%, which is followed by Maharashtra at 3.6%, then Uttar Pradesh 2.7%, Delhi 2.9%, and Tamil Nadu has the least death of rate, that is just 0.9%. Its further analysis reveals that there are a few cities which are very much responsible for the growing intensity of corona infection or pandemic infection. Those are Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Thane, Pune, Indore, Kolkata, Gurgaon, and Jaipur. The contribution of Mumbai is 51,100 cases, Delhi 31,309 cases, and Chennai 25,937 cases. That is there. In the global scenario, the total number of cases infected is 3.36 million, and deaths are 4,14,030, and recovery is 3.63 million. This is a scenario so far as the nature and extent of COVID-19 infection in India. In addition to that, some of the peculiarities and features of the COVID-19 infection that is necessary to be taken into account, because they have policy implications. Those are helpful for us in assessing the policy that is adopted by the government and Reserve Bank of India, and also what should be or what can be a future course of action. Previous. Now, I had tried to place what is the present position of COVID infection, recovery, and also death rates. This graph tries to tell us we have completed 4 lockdowns and 5th is in progress. Some unlock is there, but the distance between the number of patients infected and the active cases, that is rising. That shows that lockdown has not to the extent has become effective so far as control of the infection of COVID-19 is concerned. That is there. Second, next. In addition to that, this curve tries to explain how the number of cases infected is rising and how the number of cases active is rising, and in between the distance is rising. And the rising distance is an indicator of inefficiency of the lockdown policy. It is an inefficiency. It is an indicator of inefficiency of lockdown policy that is necessary to be taken into account. Next, yes, one more very important feature that I want to place before you. In the country like us, we are in crores, more than 130 crores. And the total number of tests those are carried out, that is very insignificant. Test here in a slide a comparison I have tried to show. Test per 1 million population that has been carried out. For India, it is just 2056. 2056. In America, it is 43,404. Try to make a comparison of Indian population and US population. In Russia, it is 57,581. In Germany, it is 42,923. In Spain, it is 64,976. What does this mean? This means that our health sector is not to that extent efficient. In other words, we can say it has placed before us the weaknesses of our health sector, and consequently we have failed in the increasing number of tests, and our number of tests is meager only. It is insignificant only. Try to take into account our population and population of other countries, especially I have tried to show in the slide. Next. Then in this, I have tried to place before you what is the profile of patient and what is the profile of morbidity, that is this. So far as patient is concerned, 76% males, then 24% females, but age profile tries to take into account that less than 40 years, it is 47%, and 40 to 60 years, it is 43, and greater than 60 years, it is 19. Means infection is more in less than 40 and 40 to 60. But death profile tells us that males are 73, females are 27, but the age profile tells us that for the senior citizens, it is age group in the greater than 60, it is 63%. And one more peculiarity of the morbidity or deaths is that those patients who were having co-diseases, comorbidity, their proportion of deaths was significantly higher. It is just 86%, and no history of disease, it is 14%. This means that senior citizens are the victims of corona disease. That next slide. Okay. Now, this is what I want to explain. What is the nature and extent of corona pandemic infection, and what are the salient features, how it is concentrated, how it has different dimensions and aspects. Now, moving towards the impact of COVID-19 lockdown on Indian economy. All of us know from 24th March, lockdown policy has been started. 4 lockdowns have been completed, and 5th is in place. It will be removed on 30th June, and a little bit some unlock is also there. How this lockdown policy as a measure that we adopted, all of us know, so as to control infection of COVID-19, we adopted use of sanitization, use of hand wash, use of physical distancing or safe distancing, and prominently lockdown policy. Actually, so far as WHO guidelines is concerned, WHO has not guided that we should adopt a lockdown policy so as to combat the infection of COVID-19. And therefore, in some of the countries in the world, lockdown policy has not been adopted, other measures have been implemented. But we adopted lockdown policy. Number one, it was unplanned. No plan was there. No pre-intimation was there. Unexpectedly, haphazardly, we declared that lockdown policy. And supplementary to that, no any planning was there, no any preparation was there, that we adopted. Why we adopted lockdown policy? Because at this moment also, vaccine on COVID-19 is not there, and medicine is also not there. Medicine is also not there, and therefore it is one of the measures that will control infection of COVID-19. That was the intention, and we adopted that. But unfortunately, no planning was there. Certainly, immediately, quickly, haphazardly, that decision was taken. No any pre-intimation was there, and consequently, that very adversely affected this Indian economy or economic growth of the Indian economy. No, so far as the analysis of growth is concerned, the theory tells us that growth of any economy is determined by four factors, four determinants. Number one is, it is shown in the slide. GDP is a measure, it is an indicator of economic growth, and it is determined by, affected by C plus I plus G into X minus M. C is consumption expenditure, I is investment expenditure, G is government expenditure, and X minus M, X is exports, and M is imports, net exports, that favorably affects economic growth. Now, in this context, I wanted to explain before you, on the one hand, how economic growth was affected because of the lockdown policy that we adopted, because it was haphazard, no planning, it was quickly, immediately, it was adopted in India. And supplementary to that, the factors those are contributing to economic growth, that I want to analyze, and how the end result of these factors, those contributed very adverse effect on economic growth of Indian economy. Now, while analyzing economic growth, I should tell you trends in GDP, industry, agriculture, service, international trade, and as the result of that, employment, unemployment, labor, migrant labor, and poverty as well. Next slide. Next. Now, in determinants of economic growth, consumption expenditure plays a very important role. James Keynes is a very renowned economist, and who is very much responsible for the revival of the world economy from the Great Depression of 1929 to 1933. And he says consumption expenditure plays a very important role in a revival of any economy. The data or the slide, the graph in this slide tells us that how after lockdown, it has two parts, before lockdown and after lockdown, how after lockdown consumption expenditure has declined very significantly. And as the result of that, it has resulted in a significant adverse effect on economic growth of Indian economy. Next. Previous. Okay. Now investment, okay, fine. Investment is one of the indicators of economic growth. It affects economic growth. It is a determinant of economic growth. And that is indicated by India Business Expectations Index. That is, what is the desire, what is the willingness of the businessman so as to undertake investment, so as to speed up and make dynamic economic or business activities. And when that indicator is taken into account, the graph in this slide that tells us that after lockdown, there is a significant fall. After January till this June, a significant fall in this India Business Expectation Index is concerned. What is its meaning? Its meaning is that businessmen are not desirous to undertake investment, because for any investment there should be demand, and unless and until whatever output is produced, it is not being disposed of, it is not being sold, they are not in a position to undertake new investment. And that has happened after the lockdown policy, and consequently investment expenditure has been decreased, and it has contributed a significant fall in economic growth of India. Next slide. Now, previous, back. Now, investment results in capital formation. And in the post-lockdown period, capital formation has also significantly declined. It has also significantly declined. Take example here, before lockdown, this is capital formation trend. And after lockdown, this is capital, a little bit rise is found. But when we try to make a comparison, it is a wide gap is there, wide drop is there, and that requires to be taken into account. Next, next slide. Now, previous back, okay. When investment and capital formation takes place, when loans and advances are given by the banks and financial institutions. And in this slide, it is found that after in the post-lockdown period, especially these bars show how the loans and advances extended by the banks and financial institutions have been declined very significantly. Take this in January 2020. This is in other period. And when after post-lockdown, banks have not extended. Not extended means there is no demand from the businessman for loans and advances. And consequently, loans and advances have declined, investment has declined, and capital formation also has declined. That is there. Next slide. Now, in the determinants of economic growth, like that of consumption expenditure, like that of investment expenditure, government expenditure also plays a very important role. And when it is taken into account, it is indicated by fiscal expenditure. And fiscal expenditure tells us that this is a pre-lockdown period situation. In January 20, in February 20, in March 20, in April 20, or after April, it has a significant decline. And consequently, the transfer of income of government to the people, that is reduced, and demand for the commodities and services is being very adversely affected, and that is happening so far as the post-lockdown policy is concerned, and it is very adversely affecting economic growth. Next slide. Now, this gives us an idea what is the proportion of government expenditure to GDP, and this proportion is continuously declining. A little bit rise is found, but it is insignificant when we try to make a comparison with the previous period that is there. Next. Now, in these determinants of economic growth, export and import, that is especially net export, that plays a very important role in the growth of any economy. And the trend in export gives us an idea that we have a significant falling trend in export of India. Take example in January 20, this one, in February this one, in March this one, and in April this one, and further it is continued. That is, export has been falling very significantly. It has declined by 60%. It has declined by 60% in the lockdown period, or in the lockdown policy that is there. Next. This talks about the trend in import. Some imports are also helpful in promoting growth, and import has been also declined. Take example, in January, import was this one, February, this March and April, and after April, it is also falling continuously. Export is falling rapidly. Import is also falling, and consequently, how international trade works as an engine of economic growth, that has been very adversely affected, and that is contributed so far as a significant and rapid decline in economic growth of India. Next. Again, in foreign trade, already I have mentioned 60% fall in that export is found, and some commodities, their export has been very significantly fallen. Take example, oil mill export has been declined by 70%. Export of meat and dairy has been declined by 45%. Engineering goods exports have been declined by 42%. Jewelry export have been declined by 41%. Leather and leather product export has been declined by 37%. And that gives us an idea how rapidly commodity-wise also exports of India has been declined in the post-lockdown period. Next. This inventories talks about how the dispose of commodities and services has not taken place, and when the production takes place, it should be sold in the market, and if demand is not there, it is not being sold, and consequently the stock of commodities, we call it as inventories, that shows a rising trend, and stocks of commodities has been rising. This is especially in the post-lockdown period that is taking place, and it is also contributing to adverse effect on economic growth of Indian economy. Next. Till this moment, I tried to explain before you. Number one, what is the nature and extent of corona or COVID-19 infection in India? What are the salient features? Then I tried to explain in the framework of economic theory how consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, government expenditure, export or international trade have a negative trends, have negative behavior, and consequently how that adversely affected economic growth of Indian economy. Now moving towards the next section of my lecture, how it has affected adversely economic growth of Indian economy or affected Indian economy adversely, that I want to explain. In this slide, in the first quarter of 1920, the growth rate was 7.1%. In the second quarter, it declined to 6.2%. It further declined to 5.6%. But in the financial year 2019 to 20, in first quarter it was 5.6%. It significantly declined to 5.1%. In third quarter it declined to 4.7%, and in fourth quarter it has very significantly declined to less than 4%. And this has been a very adverse effect of lockdown policy on Indian economic growth that is indicated by GDP. Next. This talks about what is the trend in GDP of India, and the GDP of India that is showing how the year-wise growth is taking place in 2017, in 2018, in 2019, and in 2020. In 2020, how this growth has been very rapidly declining because of the determinants. Already I have tried to explain consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, government expenditure, and net exports or international trade as well. Next. Now, all of us know what are forecasting of economic growth of India at global level. And also I want to place before you. For your kind information, Geeta Gopinath is Indian. She is chief economist of International Monetary Fund, and she says in the year 2019-20, economic growth of India will be just 1.9%. All of us know in the budget for 2021, we wanted to realize economic growth of $3 trillion in 1 year, and in forthcoming years, we are desirous to realize economic growth of India of $5 trillion economy, and for that reason, at least 2-digit GDP growth rate is required. And if GDP growth rate in the year 1920 is 1.9%, how we are going to realize that $3 trillion economy and $5 trillion economy in coming years? That poses $1 million question before the Indian economy. In China, it will grow at 1.2%. US economy will grow at -6.1%. World economy will grow at -3%. But for us, growth is of crucial importance because the population is significantly higher. The population below the poverty line is significantly higher. The population, young population, is also significantly higher, and the magnitude of unemployment in India is also significantly greater. In this backdrop, there is a need for speeding up economic growth. But if the forecasts are taken into account, that shows that economic growth is very rapidly declining. But if we try to implement the pro-growth policies, there is possibility of increase in GDP growth rate in the year 2021. In the year 2021 at 7%, but rigorous efforts, honest efforts are required. Very next slide. Next. Now, this is latest forecasting of economic growth for India. It is given on 9th June 2020. A report was published, namely Global Economic Prospect Report. And in that report, what will be the economic growth of India in the financial year 2019-20 and 2021 that is presented. In 1920, it will be -3.2%. This is latest data. This is on 9th June 2020. It is declared in the Global Economic Prospect Report. it will be minus 3.2%. China, it will grow at 1%. US, it will grow at minus 7%. World economy will grow at minus 5%. And in the year 2021, there is possibility of growth of Indian economy at 3.1%. But we are striving for $5 trillion US economy. We are striving for speeding up economic growth, for which it is required at least double digit growth rate, but it is not being observed. It is not being visualized, or possibility of visualization is very, very difficult. That is there. It is also necessary to be taken into account. Next slide. Next slide. Now, some rating agencies also have forecasted growth of India. Take example, according to Asia Development Bank, India will grow at 1.8% to minus 2.8%. According to Goldman and Sachs, in 2021 it will grow at 1.6%. Moody says it will be 2.5%. SP says it is 3.5%. Policy is taken into account. It is found that, take example, coal. Coal production has declined by 15% from April 19 to April 20. Then crude oil has declined by 6%. Natural gas production has declined by 20%. Refinery production has declined by, it is 24%. Fertilizer production has declined by 5%. Steel production by 83%. Cement production has declined by 86%, and gives us an idea that industry sector, industry wise, that also shows a very adverse effect, a very declining trend, so far as the contribution to the GDP of economic growth of India is to be taken into account. Indian economy is known as an agriculture economy. We introduce Indian economy as agriculture economy. And what is the impact of this COVID-19 lockdown? That also requires to be taken into account. And when it is taken into account, basically, actually, it was found that the Kharif season was adverse, but natural condition was favorable, and production of agriculture commodity was significant because of the, but because of lockdown policy, no market was there. Markets were closed. No transport was there. No accession was there. In agriculture. It was found that agriculture has been adverse. Production was there, but the market access was not there. Logistics was not there. Go ahead. Next. Go. Next. Go, sir. Go. Next. Proceed further. And adversely affected, economic growth has been very adversely affected through agriculture. It's favorable because of the natural conditions. Agriculture was favorable because of the natural conditions, but because no market access was there, transport facilities were there, and consequently, it adversely affected agriculture also. Still, it is found that on agriculture, more than 700 million people are depending upon, directly or indirectly, on agriculture. And agriculture's contribution to GDP of India, and 44% workforce is engaged in agriculture. About 55% laborers are from agriculture. But because of the even natural conditions were favorable, lockdown transport, no logistics, no market, and prominently no purchasing power with the people, no demand. Production of mango, watermelon, cauliflower, cabbage, tomato, other vegetables, paddy, wheat, it was in greater quantity, significant quantity, but it didn't get price because of no market. Consequently, it adversely affected agriculture sector also. Take example, the farmer producing watermelon, he was saying, The price of 1 unit of watermelon was 10 rupees last year. Now it is 1 rupee. It is because of the no access. It is because of. But on the contrary, in cities and metropolitan cities, the price of a rising trade because of shortage of the commodities, no transport, no access, no market. The cities availability of the agriculture commodities, fruits, also vegetables, it was inadequate, and there was a trend in prices. Take example, prices of cereals and products rose 1.8%. Then milk and milk products prices rose by 9.4%. Fruit prices rose by 2.7%. Vegetable prices rose by 24%. And sugar and confectionery prices rose by 10%. This is a dilemma relating to agriculture. This is a dilemma relating to agriculture. Production was sufficient, production was adequate because of favorable natural conditions, especially rainfall was adequate and it was in time. Actually, it was excess rainfall. So Kharif was lost, but Rabi was very much favorable. Whatever produce that was produced in the agriculture, it has no market, it has no harvesting, and consequently, farmers have to damage that production. But in the cities and metropolitan cities, because of no transport, because of no market access, it very adversely affected prices of the agriculture commodity. And as the result of that also, there was a dilemma lost to the agriculture and prices were also rising. That is of crucial importance, which is necessary to be taken into account. Now the end result of this fall in agriculture, fall in GDP, fall in industry, fall in service sector, it was found that a significant fall in employment generation. Employment generation has fallen very rapidly, and one of the data given by CMIE, in 2016-17, rate of unemployment was just 6.2% for the nation. But in the post-lockdown period, it rose to 24%. Economic theory tells unemployment that is 3% is affordable, it is sustainable, it is known as natural unemployment, and that can happen in any economy because of the technological changes, because of changes in tastes and habits of the people. But unemployment in India rose to 24% in the post-lockdown period. It was significantly higher, and consequently, as the result of that, number of, especially in export sector, 15 million jobs were lost. In textile sector, 3 million jobs were lost. And more importantly, it is found that manufacturing sector, then construction sector, international trade sector, transport sector, and accommodation sector, very significant loss in jobs and employment was observed. And as the result of that, the loss in employment very adversely affected labor class or working class that is there. All of us know in India, the nature of employment is more than 91% is formal employment, and less than 10% is less than 10% is formal employment, and more than 91% is informal employment. Because of lockdown policy, all activities were closed, all activities were shut down, and as the result of that, employment was zero. It was more or less zero, 24% rate of unemployment, and consequently, in India, about 45 crores are informal workers, and of that, 40% are migrant laborers, and they lost their livelihood, they lost their employment, and consequently, they couldn't survive. As the result of that, how to satisfy the want for food, how to satisfy the want for shelter, that was a significantly intensive problem posed before the workers, and therefore they started to migrate to their native places, but no transport access, no purchasing power, no money with them, and consequently thousands of kilometers they went by foot. Number of accidents took place, number of deaths takes place, and this is a situation so far as the labor sector and laborers and laborers in the country like us. At global level, one of the reports was declared known as Oxfam report. And that Oxfam report tells us that because of the lockdown policy being adopted across the globe, and Indian people shifted from informal sector to poor. Informal sector to poor. They converted into poor. And for that reason, the revival package required was 2.5 trillion US dollars. And in the country like us, we have people or population below the poverty line, it is in crores. And as per the multidimensional poverty index of the total population, 50% population is below the poverty line. If this is taken into account, we can just imagine how this lockdown policy affected employment generation, unemployment rate, and consequently loss of livelihood, and shifted into the intensive poverty, and that requires to be taken into consideration so far as the impact of lockdown policy on Indian economy is to be taken into account. Now moving towards what policies the government of India has adopted. The policies of government of India: economic stimulus package 1, economic stimulus package 2, some measures announced and being implemented by Reserve Bank of India, and the economic stimulus package which the government of India has declared. Government says it is more than 20 lakh crore rupees, and in GDP terms it is 10% of GDP. But when the analysis was carried out of the economic stimulus package, what is its proportion? But before that, what economic stimulus package have been given in the foreign countries, in the other countries? Take example, in America it is 11% of GDP. In Spain it is 15% of GDP. In Germany it is 21% of GDP. In Malaysia it is 16% of GDP. But in India it is less than 1%. It is less than 1%. And this gives us an idea that the economic stimulus package that is given by the government, it is less than 1%. Some of the studies are there, and those studies tell us that, take example, Morgan Stanley is there, Nomura is there, Citibank is there. They studied what is the actual package or what is the real package, economic stimulus package given by the government of India. And all these studies reveal that it is 1% or less than 1% of GDP, even though it is given to MSMEs, poor people, agriculture allied activities, etc., etc. And in the form of economic reforms, the government is desirous to bring about privatization of coal, minerals, atomic energy, then air transport, industry, infrastructure, defense, space as well. This reveals that the economic package which is given is inadequate, and supplementary to that, it has a major share of loan. It has a major proportion of loan and a very insignificant proportion of direct transfer of income from government to the people. But in foreign countries, the proportion of economic package given in foreign countries, it is especially in the form of cash. I will cite two examples. In Canada, it is $27 billion package has been given. 75% wage subsidy has been covered, and $2,000 per month for 4 months have been given to jobless people, and $1,250 per month for 4 months have been given to graduates. Same is the case of financial assistance given to the small and business industries that is there. This means that on the one hand, this package is inadequate. On the other hand, it has a more loan content. It has a smaller direct transfer of money or assistance content from government to the people. And consequently, its implementation has not to that extent effective. It has not become effective because I have some data, and that data tells us that on May 20, the fall in manufacturing sector was by 31%. service sector by 13%, and composite, that is India as a whole, by 15%. That is, the financial package didn't succeed in revival of the economy. Automobile industry is a worse affected economic lockdown, and it is found that Maruti Suzuki sale of motors declined by 89% on May 2020. Hyundai sale declined by 84% in May 2020. This reveals that this package didn't succeed much. This package didn't succeed much so far as revival of the economy, and this brings before us what should be the policy. What should be the policy direction for the revival of economy? Number one, new package is required. It should be more. It should be more. It should be at least 10% of GDP, and it should have more content of direct transfer of income from government to the people. It should have a lesser proportion of loan, because loan is its effect has a long-term effect. It takes a long time so far as its effects is concerned. Number two is that at global level, basic universal income policy is being adopted in many countries. I have a lot of data, and that policy is necessary to be implemented in India, because transfer of income that can increase purchasing power, that can increase demand, because we have more than 45 crore people working in informal sector, and 40% are migrant laborers, and as the result of they have lost their jobs and income and purchasing power, they should be given basic universal income at least 7,500 per month, so that their purchasing power can be promoted and demand can increase. India has a sufficient stock of food grains production, so free of cost, freely, this food grain should be distributed among the poor, among the informal workers, among the agriculture laborers, and among the migrants. That is necessary. Manrega should be made dynamic, and Manrega should generate employment opportunities to the greater extent possible. On infrastructure, the emphasis should be given, and consequently, while adopting a development or growth strategy, employment should be given more importance. But at the same time, health sector and education sector have been necessary to be strengthened, because they are social sectors. Those are state, and government should play a very important role, but in the name of reforms, it is privatized. Efforts are being privatized more, and consequently, that is intensive so far as posing of the problem before the Indian economy is concerned. This has posed certain challenges: revenue mobilization, then need for printing of currency, loans and advances, grants and assistance, fiscal deficit. These are some of the challenges. Those can be tackled. What innovations can be carried out? Development policy should be rural and semi-urban centric. Health and education should be given a status of social commodity or social service. Indian economy should be industry sector dominated than agriculture or service sector. And prominently, whatever policies of growth that we formulate, it should be pro-employment or employment oriented. And in addition to that, our reforms should be in the framework of Constitution of India. Constitution of India has given directions. What should be the policies? What should be the policy direction? Implementation is rigorous, honest, and sincere. I hope definitely Indian economy will be recovered. Lockdown policy should be relating to only containment zone. It should not be restricted to the city. It should not be restricted to any district or any state like that. It should be restricted only to the containment zone. In that direction, if the efforts are being made, we will be in a position to revive the economy. But at the same time, people of India, citizens of India also should be responsible. They should follow the rules like sanitization, hand wash, use of mask, and physical distancing or safe distancing that is required. If in that direction the efforts are made, I am damn sure Indian economy will be revived and Indian economy will be on the track of growth that is there. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Kamlesh sir. Am I
Thank
audible?
you. Yes. Yes, audible,
Thank you
audible.
very much, Kambi sir. It is a very
Thank you. Thanks a
informative
lot.
and useful session. There are some questions from participants. With your
Okay.
permission, can I?
Yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Most welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome. Most welcome.
Okay, sir. Uh,
Yes.
one is there.
Uh,
As the government declared packages,
yes,
don't you
yes.
think the budget deficit will increase?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I got a question. It is an emergency period, and in emergency, we should not take into account fiscal deficit is part of fiscal discipline. And in the situation of this economic in this emergency, because this COVID-19 is emergency, it's a pandemic, and in the situation of such emergencies, we cannot think of fiscal deficit and fiscal discipline with the passage of time we maintain, and we can attempt the control of fiscal deficit. At this moment, there is a no need for thinking of fiscal deficit and fiscal discipline. Go ahead.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Next question is from Madhukar
Yes, yes,
Baburao Ankawle, sir. He asked how
yes,
it's
yes.
possible to India's GDP compared to China.
Uh, yes. First of all, India is also one of the fastest growing economy previously. China is also fastest growing economy. Basically, these are the big markets, and they have a lot of demand. And consequently, when we try to examine growth rates of the globe, developed countries have reached to the maximum level of growth. And it is the developing countries, their level of growth is necessary to be reached, realized. And it is the countries like China and India and countries from Asian and African countries, they have growth potentialities. And developed countries level. So it is natural we can make a comparison of growth of India with China, because more or less much not difference is much not there. Not difference is much there between the growth of China and growth of India. China is a little bit ahead than of India, but we should cross, or we should be ahead to the growth of China and making a comparison, because both are in developing countries, both are in Asia continent, and both are highly populated countries. So these are the points of justification with the help of the comparison of growth of India with the growth of China. Any more?
Thank you, sir.
Any more?
Thank you, sir. One more question is there from Premraj Patil, sir.
Yes, yes.
He says, what Indian economy is
Yes,
very
yes,
weak.
yes.
It collapsed within only 2 months period.
Yes,
We need to reconstruct it. What is your opinion?
yes, yes, yes. Already I have mentioned that this problem is actually a demand-driven problem. Demand is not there, otherwise supply has no meaning at all. Supply depends upon demand. More this demand, more the supply. If only supply is there, it will not revive the economy. And therefore, urgent need is number one. Direct transfer of income, basic universal income is there. In addition, direct financial support is required. Even small business, agriculture farmers, agriculture laborers, migrant laborers, that will revive the economy. Only loans and advances, only low interest loan, that will not serve the purpose. Take example for MSMEs package is given, but they have loan burden, and unless and until they repay the previous loans, they are not in a position to get benefits of that package. This is a condition. If this is the situation, the package of loan that is declared by the government, it will not be much effective. And already I have cited data. These measures have been taken place after its implementation. I have that is, there is a need for, first of all, increasing demand, and later on there is a need for increasing supply, and both demand and supply will be in a good position. Then and then only revival of the economy will be possible. Demand should be given more importance, and supply also depends upon demand. It is not just the supply which can revive the economy. Actually, supply also depends upon demand. If demand is not there, no investment will take place, no production will be increased, and consequently growth will not be revived. That is there.
Okay, sir. Thank you. One last question, sir.
Yes, yes. Most welcome. Most welcome. Thank you very much for raising
Okay.
questions.
Okay, sir. From Bhalchandra Shetty, sir, he asks what
Yes.
to make post-lockdown analysis. What should be the period of study?
A period of study is actually what has happened. We have to take into account slowly some relaxations are being given. Some relaxations are being given.
Okay, okay.
Fourth lockdown and some in third lockdown also. Some relaxations were given. What activities relaxations were given, those are necessary to be assessed. And in the first unlock, what relaxations to which economic activities, to which agriculture, industrial activities, service sector activities, relaxations have been given, those are necessary to be taken into account. And if considering or collecting the data, the analysis is made, we will be in a position to arrive at how efficiently this policy is helping us in the revival of the economy, and how the packages and government measures are affecting revival of the economic growth that can be realized, that can be identified. And some of the data already I have cited. Some of the data already I have cited relating to manufacture, relating to automobile, relating to electricity consumption. Already I have cited data that tells us that if these measures and the relaxations are not adequate and sufficient, still curfew is there, still restrictions on working hours are there from 9 to 5, that number of workers to be used are restricted. This can pose adverse effect on revival of the economy immediately and quickly. It will take time. It will take time. Any more?
Sir, from my side, I want to ask one question.
Yes, most welcome, most welcome.
Can I ask? See, China's economy is increasing.
Yes, yes.
And other countries' economy is decreasing nowadays due to
Yes.
this lockdown period.
Yes, yes.
Then, what is your opinion?
Yes,
If
yes.
in future China
Yes.
will lead to economic sector?
Yes. Very important, very important question. First of all, our dependence on China is about 40 to 50%. Our dependence on China. Number two, this lockdown policy didn't much affect Chinese economy, because it was lockdown was restricted to some of the states and some of the areas in China. In India, it was for on entire country. For whole country, lockdown was accepted. It was implemented. In China, it was not on the entire country. It was not on the total country. It was some of the areas and some of the states, and consequently, the intensity of this corona pandemic or infection was lower in China compared to India. Number one. Secondly, dependence on China of the other countries, even US also, and other countries also significantly higher. And consequently, what I hope the Japanese companies, other companies are desirous to move from China. It is fine, but that infrastructure, that facilities are necessary to be given, and in that direction, the efforts are necessary to be undertaken. Otherwise, the taking away of the companies from China into India is rather difficult. It is rather difficult. That conducive, favorable environment is necessary to be made, and in that direction, rigorous, honest efforts are necessary. Unless and until we endeavor in that direction, we should not be very much overconfident that all Chinese companies and industries will be shifted from China to India. That will not happen. Basically, our dependence on China is about 40 to 50%. Same is the case of other countries also. And China is having that facilities, that infrastructure. That infrastructure, those incentives are necessary to be given in India. We should think whether it is possible. In that direction, we are be rigorous, honest, or sincere. That will depend upon, that will decide to what extent we will take benefit of the companies which want to take away, withdraw from the Chinese economy to Indian economy or other countries. That is there.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is listening and giving all questions answers. Thank you very much. It is a very informative session.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.